International AI 2026. We'll run through opening remarks and then we'll have a presentation on the report, followed by a panel discussion. And then there'll be some time for Q&A. So please feel free to note down any questions you might have. And then we'll run through those at the end of the session, as many as we can make it through. To kick off, I'll introduce myself and I'll just share my screen for some background. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Wingyi Lau. I'm COO and Product Director at AI Safety Asia, otherwise known as ASA. We're a nonprofit dedicated to building Asia as a globally leading, safe and responsible AI innovator. And our work spans capacity building, policy research, and international convening. For example, some of our collaborators, we've collaborated with UNESCO, and our SEA Observatory was awarded their Global Forum on AI Ethics Award, and it's now advised by Gabriela Ramos and Dipali Khanna. We're fortunate enough to have a breadth of perspectives and experiences in our advisors, including Ima Abraham, who is former public policy director at Meta and former executive director at the Habibi Center. And of course, Professor Hammam Riza, who I'll introduce you to properly in a minute. At the India Summit this year, we collaborated with the UKAC and Professor Joshua Bengio, and this session is an extension of that work on the International AI Safety Report. So I'll stop sharing my screen. So we're here to explore one of the most important questions facing governments, technologists, and societies right now, which is how do we ensure that artificial intelligence is developed and deployed safely? Today, we're going to have the privilege of hearing directly from one of the lead authors of the 2026 International AI Safety Report. It's a very comprehensive scientific assessment of AI risks and the state of play today, I'm sure for anyone who's read the entire report. And we'll be asking what its findings mean for Indonesia and the region. We'll introduce each of our speakers as we go. But first, let me hand over the floor to someone who's been at the center of the Indonesian technology story for over 3 decades. As president of KORIKA, Indonesia's Collaborative AI Association, formerly president of BPPT, he's been instrumental in shaping the country's digital infrastructure. He also founded IP TechNet, Indonesia's very first licensed internet service provider. So without further ado, let me welcome Professor Hammam Riza.
All right. Thank you, Wingyi. Of Communication and Digital Affairs, Bapak Nez. Also, the director of AI Kita, Ibu Aju Widyasari. Distinguished representative from AI Safety Asia, AI Task Force, colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. No longer only a subject of research, it is now becoming part of our
Professor Hammam, I'm not sure if we might be having some tech
Sorry,
issues.
disconnected again. I mean,
Yeah, okay.
right.
Much better now, thank you.
only a subject of research. It is really becoming our AI offers efficiency, of course, precision, and the ability to analyze data
Sorry, Professor, the signal seems
at
to
a
be
scale once unimaginable. Extremely important. But
Are you able to use a different connection?
simply pursuing technological sophistication or what kind of AI are we building? Are we doing technological sophistications or are we aligned with our national interests? So history has shown us that technological progress does not automatically, without ethical direction and strong governance.
Professor Haman, can you hear me?
Are you? Can you hear me?
It's cutting out quite a bit. Is there another connection you could use?
Roadmap that DG has put forward in 2025. So let me. Okay.
Thank you everyone for your patience. It wouldn't be a webinar if we didn't have some tech issues. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So let me. Hmm.
It might be it's it might be okay as if your video is off, Prof. So I think we can hear you okay right now if you wanted to try again.
Uh, can you give me another mic, please?
Able to see you as you speak, but if you want to keep your video off, the audio seems to be okay with your video off.
Ask the host to share my screen. All right.
Great.
Okay. So is lawyer skills, right? In Indonesia, discussion map that Komdigi has put forward, discuss among others about our data and infrastructures, right? But technology alone is not enough. Berikutnya, who controls it? whose data is used, what values are embedded with now. Indonesia must maintain the AI balance. The question is sovereignty, and we talk about balanced AI. So it is designed as a cross in a way that is safe, trusted, accountable, and aligned with our national priorities. Our role is very clear. Because without standards, there can be
Professor Haman, I think we still have a few audio issues.
Yeah, let me talk from the other one. Okay.
Okay, yeah, let's try it one more. If not, we
Yeah.
could come back later.
So I want to introduce AI Safety Institute Indonesia under KORIKA. Can you move the slide to the next slide, please? Okay. So if you look at these slides, how consumer views the transparency of AI interactions, right? You can see here that there is clear and I would say important guidelines for all of us. We talk about not only AI being a transparent, but we need to know about AI. There is auditable, AI that is fair, AI that is explainable and interpretable. We need to talk about responsible AI. So I see the next slide, please. I see is trying to bring in this AI system that can not only be measured by performance or intelligence, but also by safety, by robustness, transparency, fairness, and societal impact. And this is where I see is committed to strengthening the capacity building and collaborations. AI safety cannot be achieved by government alone, by academia alone, or by industry alone. It requires collaboration across the entire ecosystem, whether it is for policymakers, researchers, developers, and of course, the international partners. So I'm happy that today's webinar is really a proof of how we collaborate internationally. AI Safety Indonesia Institute with AI Safety Asia and UK AI Security Institute, we collaborate to have this exciting webinar. Today, we will discuss the International AI Safety Report 2026. Thank you to Karina, the lead writer of the International AI Safety Report 2026, to exchange perspective with all the experts and explore how Indonesia can strengthen its readiness in AI safety and governance. AI safety is not about slowing innovation. It is about ensuring innovation remain trusted, beneficial, and aligned with our national values. Because ultimately, no sovereign AI without safe AI. So ladies and gentlemen, it is now my great honor to invite the Vice Minister of Communication and Digital Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, Pak Nezar Patria, to deliver his keynote remarks and share the government's perspective on the futures of AI safety, governance, and digital sovereignty in Indonesia. I am a witness of how capable and the journey of Vice Minister in pushing forward the AI safety for Indonesia. The declarations going into the AI Action Summit, to the UNESCO Global Forum on AI Ethics, to India AI Impact Summit. I witnessed that the Vice Minister have done a great job on pushing and governing towards the AI governance. So, Your Excellence, the floor is yours to talk about Indonesia AI governance. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Hamam. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you great.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you again, Prof. Hamam, for a very brief and inspiring presentations to give us a brief overview of the AI safety. Okay. Good afternoon all, and Prof. Hamam and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure and an honor to join you today at the Indonesia Artificial Intelligence Safety Virtual Engagement 2026, co-hosted by KORIKA, IC, ISA, and the UK AI Security Institute. This forum comes at an important moment. As we know that around the world, artificial intelligence is advancing at extraordinary speed, bringing not only enormous opportunities, but also serious questions about safety, ethics, governance, and public trust. The release of 2026 International AI Safety Report has made this even more clear. Developed through collaboration among more than 100 AI experts and supported by over 30 countries, including Indonesia, the report provides a comprehensive picture of where AI is heading. On one hand, we are witnessing remarkable breakthrough from multilingual conversational systems and advanced coding capabilities to increasingly realistic content generations. But at the same time, we are also becoming more aware of the risk, misinformation, social disruption, ethical challenges, and the concentration of technological power. This is why AI safety can no longer be treated as a secondary issue. It must become part of the core architecture of AI development itself. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia believes that innovation and responsibility must move together. We see AI as a strategic technology that can accelerate economic growth, improve public services, strengthen education and healthcare, and help address complex national challenges. But we also believe that technological progress must remain aligned with ethics, fairness, and the public interest. This includes ensuring fair practices within the digital ecosystem. Recently, we have emphasized the importance of balanced cooperation between digital platforms and news publishers, particularly in relation to AI-generated content. innovation should not undermine the sustainability of journalism, that our principle, and also to the creative industries or the rights of content creators. Indonesia is currently moving toward a more comprehensive AI governance framework. Our objective is clear: how to build an AI ecosystem that encourages innovations while also protecting citizens' social values and democratic principles. For us, responsible AI means several things. First, strengthening AI literacy so that our citizen and workforce are prepared to navigate this transformation, and with the principle, no one is left behind. And secondly, embedding ethics, transparency, and accountability into every stage of AI development and deployment. And thirdly, ensuring that the benefits of AI are distributed more fairly while its disruptive impacts are managed carefully through dialogue, policy, and adaptive regulations. And lastly, strengthening international collaborations. AI safety is a global challenge. No country can address it alone. That is why partnership, shared standards, and continuous dialogue are becoming increasingly important. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2026 International AI Safety Report should serve not as a warning alone, but as a call for collective actions. The future of AI will not be shaped only by technology companies or government. It will also shaped by researchers, civil society, academia, industry leaders, and international cooperation, such as what we are building here today. Indonesia stands ready to contribute to this global effort to support the advancement of AI safety, encourage responsible innovation, and help ensure that AI remains human-centered, trustworthy, and beneficial for all. Let us move beyond discussion and translate these ideas into concrete actions. And let us work together to build an AI future that is safe, ethical, inclusive, and transformative. I think that's my 2 cents, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Wamen. Thank you so much. Great.
Thank you, Bapak Nazartria. I think you've highlighted some really important risks and opportunities of AI there, as well as the work that Indonesia is already doing in the industry. And they set a great foundation for the conversation ahead. I'm very, very grateful for your time and your presence today in this session. Before we turn to our next speaker, I want to share a message from someone whose work underpins everything we'll be discussing this afternoon. So Professor Yoshua Bengio is a Turing Award winning laureate and professor at the Université de Montréal, one of the founding figures of modern deep learning and one of the most influential AI researchers in the world. He chairs the International AI Safety Report, which is the report we'll be running through, and leading over 100 independent experts backed by more than 30 countries, the United Nations, the European Union, and the OECD. So when the 2026 report was released earlier this year, Professor Yoshua Bengio and the lead authors shared this message, and we felt it would be the perfect way to set the scene for what you're about to hear. So if you just give me a second, I will share the video. Double check that everyone can hear it as well.
My name is Yoshua Bengio.
I'm Stephen Clare.
I'm Karina Pronka.
I'm the chair. I'm one of the lead writers.
I'm a lead writer in the International AI Safety Report. The International AI Safety Report is a global and independent scientific synthesis of what researchers and engineers know about emerging AI systems,
an expert advisory panel with nominees from over 30 countries and international organizations.
and hundreds of expert reviewers from academia, industry, civil society.
The report really tries to clarify what we know about current risks, what we know about current safeguards, and where uncertainties still remain.
Companies and governments and policymakers might have to make decisions about AI without having a high degree of confidence or all the information that they need.
Some risks, such as cybercrime, fraud, harms through deepfakes, are already well established. So we have a lot of evidence here, but even their evidence often is not very systematic.
And so the report aims to help fill this sort of evidence gap by providing a baseline level of knowledge on what we do and what we don't know about general purpose AI technologies.
so what I'm hoping is that people realize that tremendous changes are probably coming in our society and we need to do something about it.
Okay, so that message reminds us that there's a gap between the pace of AI advancement and our ability to implement effective safeguards. And that gap is incredibly nuanced and a pertinent question today. So that brings me to the next step. You might recognize her from the video. I'd now like to introduce Dr. KORIKA Prunkel. She's a researcher at INRIA and a research affiliate at the Institute for Ethics in AI at the University of Oxford. She's one of the lead authors of the 2026 International AI Safety Report, which she'll be introducing to us today. And her work sits at the intersection of AI safety, ethics, and governance. So please welcome Dr. KORIKA Prunkel, and I will pass over to you.
Thank you very much. So let me just quickly share my screen. Okay. So as we all know, AI is developing very quickly. The capabilities are developing. But at the same time, the evidence that we have on these capabilities and on the risks that are emerging in the wake of these advancement in capabilities remains quite thin or emerging. And this is where the International AI Safety Report comes in. So it aims to answer three core questions. One of them is, what can general purpose AI do today and how might its capabilities change in the near future? Second one is, what are the emerging risks that general purpose AI pose? By emerging risks, we really mean risks where we do not yet have established evidence or where the evidence is mixed, where it's uncertain. And then finally, what risk management approaches exist today and how effective are they? Now, this is what the International AI Safety Report attempts to answer. It's like one of the I think it's the most comprehensive analysis of the state-of-the-art literature on AI capabilities and risks. And you can see here just quickly how the report came about. So we have Joshua Bengio as the chair of the report, and then we have a writing team of like 35 experts to write the report, importantly independent experts. So those are academics. And then finally, we also have different panels that have provided feedback to the report. Importantly, the expert advisory panel with nominees from over 30 countries, the European Union, UN, and the OECD, as well as senior expert advisors. So those are like big figures in AI. The operational support was provided by the AI Security Institute of the UK. So let me quickly give you an overview of some of the core findings of the report. So for once, we found that capabilities are still advancing very quickly and are likely to advance at the same rate, at least for the next few years. We found that a lot of the risks that were still emerging last year have now become much more concrete. And even though we see risk management tools that are improving, there still remain important gaps. And importantly, a lot of the evidence that's needed to assess the capability risks and safeguards for AI systems is not really keeping pace with those developments. Now, let me talk you through some of the core findings and some of the risks. Let's start with the capabilities. So over the last year, capabilities of AI have been improving very rapidly, but also unevenly. So we see that progress has been made, especially in sort of formal areas. So I'm thinking of mathematics, science, software engineering. So you can see various benchmarks here that indicate performance on different task groups. So for example, mathematical problem solving, high school level. Now most systems are just, I mean, this benchmark is pretty much saturated. So systems are just very good at high school level problems, but also graduate level scientific reasoning systems are becoming better and better. And this progress, on the one hand, of course, is due to more data and more compute, but not only. So in fact, one of the big drivers of progress of the last year have been new post-training techniques. So techniques that are deployed after the big initial training of the model, as well as more computing power during inference. So this means now when you're asking state-of-the-art models, like some of the frontier systems, to produce answers, they use computing power while they're producing answers. So they're thinking in a way, or they're deploying reasoning steps. And these two are some of the most important drivers of progress that we've seen in those formal areas. Now, systems are also now increasingly able to act autonomously. We have AI agents that plan and execute multi-step tasks without human input. And these systems have also improved very quickly. So the complexity of tasks they can perform has roughly tripled over the last year. Here's one way to measure such complexity is you're basically asking, can a system succeed at a task that would take a human like 15 minutes to do or 30 minutes to do? And you can see that in 2024, systems were really bad at doing these sorts of tasks. They would just manage to do tasks that would take a human a couple of minutes. But now, and this is in the software engineering context, I should say, but now they're able to perform tasks. So this was 2026, beginning of 2026. By now, I think we're already at 60 minutes of like tasks that would take a human 60 minutes that AI systems now can perform reliably. Now, even though we've seen this progress, adoption still is quite uneven globally. You can see here on this map, that's an extrapolation of data. So we see when we look at AI adoption in the United States, we still see a faster adoption than we've seen with previous technologies, such as the internet. With over 1 billion users now that are using AI. But at the same time, you can see how this is highly uneven here globally. Large parts of Africa have a user share of less than 10%. Similarly, the performance remains what we call jagged. So this basically means that even though AI systems are really good at certain tasks, they still fail at tasks that might seem simple to humans, such as, counting objects at an image or counting the numbers of E's in a word such as seemingly. So we have this jagged, this very uneven performance of systems. And this performance is also reduced in languages and cultural contexts that have little digital presence. So safeguards work less well in underrepresented languages. Performance is less good in underrepresented languages, but it's also in the case of cultural context. So just to give you an example, one study showed that systems were about 80% accurate on questions about US culture, but only 12% accurate on questions about Ethiopian culture. So it's not just the performance in terms of correctness, but we also see how cultural contexts are less represented and are less well addressed by these systems. One big challenge that we've encountered and that we're increasingly encounter is that it's really hard to measure capabilities of systems and risks, of course, and we'll talk about the risks in a second. So very often the evaluation results depend on the elicitation. So it depends on how you're prompting the system, how much access you give it to external tools, how much time you get it to think. So for example, you might find certain test results in pre-deployment testing, but then afterwards, it turns out that if you're changing some of these parameters, your system might perform much better or very differently. And similarly, a lot of evaluation still relies on benchmarks. These benchmarks can easily become outdated, contaminated, or saturated. So, for example, your system might have been exposed to the benchmark during training, which means that the system memorizes the benchmark rather than really solving it when it then gets tested on those benchmarks. So this is something that we call the evaluation gap in the report, and it's one of the biggest challenges that we're currently facing. Okay, so let me now come to the risks. I mean, this is the International AI Safety Report, so we're focusing mostly on the risks, and we unfortunately don't have a lot of space to talk about the many opportunities that AI, of course, provides. But I will now be talking about some of the risks. So one finding is that real-world evidence for several risks is growing. Now, AI systems have become really good at creating content, media. You can see in this image how from 2022, I think the prompt was something like display a classroom where a teacher is explaining mitosis to students. Here there's not even a face on the teacher, and the systems create better and better images. And now in November 2025, you can see there's like the shadow, you have the grain on the wood. Systems are just becoming so good at creating this content that it's now becoming almost impossible for humans to, I should say, but like it's becoming very difficult for humans to distinguish AI generated content from real content. And it's also becoming difficult for systems for content detection systems to distinguish AI generated content from real content. And these advances have created a number of challenges. In particular, harms from synthetic medias are on the rise. So here we have the OECD AI incident and hazards monitor database, and you can see how just the number of incidents are growing over time. AI is now frequently used for impersonation, fraud, and targeted harassment, and in part also because tools are freely available. So deep tools to create deep fake voices. These are basically that mimic real voices are now widely available. They're used for fraudulent transaction. And another insight was that women and girls are much more affected by harms that are created by the use of non-consensual intimate imagery. So I think everybody here probably knows the issues that were with Grok that we had at the beginning of the year or end of last year. But you also find these nudification applications on the net, which are applications where you feed an image into the application, it sort of nudifies, it creates a nude version of that image. And when you look at the data, 19 out of 20 of such nudification applications directly target women and girls. So there really is a disproportionate impact of those those capabilities on women and girls. Similarly, I've been talking a lot about progress in areas such as software engineering and mathematics and problem solving. And this directly translates to real-world users, such as AI systems now being better at detecting software vulnerabilities. So in a software competition, in cyber competition, AI agents identified 77% of flaws in the software, and that put them at par with the best human team. Now, the report was published prior to Claude Mythos, which apparently now has even stronger cyber capabilities. So probably it will, like Claude Mythos now outstrips these or outperforms human teams. Now, these capabilities can be used to help patch flaws in software, but of course they can also be used to exploit flaws in software. And we see that now malicious actors regularly use AI for cyber attacks, and basically all major developers report on criminal use of their systems for these cyber attacks. Now, at the time of the report, it wasn't the case that AI could fully automate a cyber attack from the beginning to the end. But what we found was that about 80% of a cyber attack has been reported to be automated by AI. Similarly, scientific capabilities raise potential biorisks. So when we look at the tasks that are necessary to create biological weapons or chemical weapons, we see that AI systems now increasingly perform very well on those tasks, such as troubleshooting on virology lab protocols, or knowledge about biological weapons of mass destruction. So we have 100 here as the baseline. This is like the human expert baseline, and systems are just becoming better and better and outperform humans in those various subtasks. Now, as a result, various developers have heightened safeguards for their systems. So they have implemented additional safeguards. But I should also mention that it's very unclear how this performance in those areas translates to real-world uplift, because there's much more involved to create a biological weapon than to have knowledge or to troubleshoot a virology lab protocol. You also need to have access to certain, to laboratory equipment, to certain infrastructure, to ingredients, and so on. We also find that frontier systems pose more and more oversight challenges. So now systems are regularly able to identify when they are being evaluated. So they know that they're in a test setting. And this is an issue if they change their behavior in those test settings. And there are various laboratory experiments where models have disabled certain oversight mechanisms. It's also increasingly common for models to find loopholes in evaluations. And this, of course, is a big problem because we rely on our pre-deployment evaluation to be representative of post-deployment behavior, right? So if these two come apart, then we are facing an oversight problem, because it's harder to predict how systems will behave once in real-world settings. Now, I won't be able to go into all risks that are covered in the report. I really encourage you to read it. There's also a 15-page policymaker summary that we have, and a 3-page executive summary, so you don't have to labor through the 200-page report. But some more risks that are covered there are AI companions, which have massively grown in popularity and which might have adverse impacts on users. I've already mentioned the AI behaviors that undermine oversight. We've also have a section on employment effects in the labor market. Quickly, we don't see any aggregate employment effects currently, so no global employment effects, but we see targeted impacts in various discipline and sectors. So, for example, writing jobs seem to be negatively affected by general purpose AI, as well as certain junior roles in software engineering tasks, for example. Okay, but I've been talking a lot about the risks, so let me now come to the safeguards and the things that have been done in order to address those risks. And here the good news is that safeguards really have been advancing, and there has been a lot of progress there, but there still remains some limitations. So, for example, models overall have become much more reliable. So here's like hallucinations, whether systems are factually accurate when you prompt them. You can see an overall upwards trend, but even here it's 75%. That means three quarters of the time systems are correct, but they still might be producing wrong responses. And we also see a lot of response from providers. So the number of companies that have released frontier AI safety frameworks has doubled over the last years, which means those are frameworks that explain how companies evaluate the risks of their systems and the capabilities of their systems and what steps they take to address them. And then also we see an international trend towards a standardization of of sort of reporting and testing and evaluation of systems, notably the EU AI Act, but also non-regulatory requirements such as reporting frameworks and international initiatives that aim at standardization of evaluation and reporting. Challenges remain. In particular, in the report, we discuss 4 categories of challenges. So, there's gaps in our scientific understanding about AI. We're facing these information asymmetries between the private sector and the public sector, and which makes it really difficult to evaluate systems and to test safeguards. We have market failure, so incentive structures might not be tailored towards incentivizing safety measures, but actually to incentivize more progress, quicker development, rather than speed versus safety trade-offs. And then we still have big institutional design and coordination challenges that I imagine most of you will be familiar with here. So I know I'm almost out of time, so I will just say a couple of words on safeguards. So overall, we see that individual technical safeguards to address risks have improved, but they still remain brittle. So for example, here, this graph shows whether people are able to elicitate harmful responses from AI systems when they have 10 attempts. So you try to give the system prompts to produce a harmful response, like how to build a bomb, for example, and you see whether the system complies with that prompt. And you can see how this has just improved massively. We're now by under 50% or like about 50%, when a year ago we were at like 90%. But now it's still the case that half of the time with 10 attempts, experts are able to elicitate harmful responses. So overall, what we see is really a cat and mouse game between attackers becoming more creative, and then the providers trying to patch those holes, and then the attackers trying to circumvent it again. So it is work in progress for sure. Open weight models pose a particular challenge, and I'm mentioning this here also because I imagine for Indonesia, this open weight models are particularly important. So these are models whose parameters are publicly accessible and downloadable. And this allows especially nations who do not have access to frontier AI providers to really tailor the models to their own needs and to fine-tune them according to their own needs. And so is a big important driver for development and innovation, as well as for research for academics like myself, who are interested in safeguards or in the capabilities of systems. Now, these models, just in terms of capabilities, are now less than a year behind in terms of what they can do compared to the big frontier models. But they pose particular challenges because everything is public. They're easily modified. It's also easier to remove safeguards from these models. So when you have sort of input-output filters that prevent your model to produce harmful output, such as CSAM, or like how to create weapons, like these safeguards are much more easily removed in those open weight models, which poses a massive challenge because once these models are out, it's hard to take them back. Approach. So and safe levels of intervention. So during training, taking out some harmful training data, for example, having input-output filters at the deployment level, and then
And Indonesia unified AI regulation like the EU or other countries, say for example, Vietnam in Southeast Asia lately. But we do have several regulations that may relate to AI because it regulates general scope of technology use cases. Say, for example, we have law on information technology and also in electronic transaction, which regulates about automatic agents to between buyer and seller. And we also have our own personal data protection law states about the protection of our personal data from any kind of electronic use or digital use in Indonesia, which we have yet to see the implementing regulation of such law. And more importantly, we are in the very critical phase because I think Bu Aju can explain more that we are crafting two presidential regulations. One is the roadmap on AI for Indonesia, and the other one is ethical use of AI in Indonesia. So having these two upcoming regulations may set a new cornerstones for Indonesia to set AI governance standards. And I am quite understand from Komdigi side they want to ensure that innovation and governance, especially safety, are in balance. So the thing is how we can protect that balance and not tip off to one side. I think that's the first thing that I would like to say.
Thank you, Pak Matthias. And I'm glad you brought up the AI ethics draft and the AI roadmap. I actually think that's a nice way to tie into this question. If I can call on Buayu as well, who led that process. What did that process or what did that the draft kind of bring up in terms of challenges and opportunities that might be relevant here? Is Buayu? I saw her earlier on the call. I don't know, maybe she had some connection issues.
Well,
Buayu?
I saw her left.
Oh,
You please call back, Wiki. Yeah.
yeah. Maybe I could get Ibu Yola to reach out to Ibu Ayu and try and get her back on the call. Second amount of connection issues we've had this morning. Sorry about that. So maybe instead I'll head back to Karina and say what Pat Mateus mentioned there in terms of having quite a disparate number of regulations that have previously applied to different industries and now trying to combine everything together or take the things that are relevant from those industries and apply it to AI. Is there anything that you've seen from the international landscape that has been particularly successful in that area?
No, I mean, what we've seen is that regulatory approaches just differ widely across the different countries. And I mean, one of the things with the International AI Safety Report was that it only lays out the evidence, so we don't make any policy recommendations. And so we also had to write it in a way that it was really neutral when it comes to the question of regulation. But I mean, we do discuss in one of the sections on the challenges in particular. Like, I mean, that is part of the big challenges to try to navigate really this different this patchwork of regulations that already exist and try to unify it. And you have regions like the EU or governance bodies like the EU who really try to say, okay, we're going to regulate AI, and then you have other parts of the world to think like, well, it makes more sense to adopt a sector-specific approach to regulation. So I think we see as much diversity there as we see with as you can imagine.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so when you mentioned there about the EU, and I know the process of bringing together the report was like a very international and global process. What would you say is the opportunity for Indonesia to be involved in that kind of global process of reviewing the current risks and getting that Indonesian perspective there?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of global initiatives that are happening, and you have convenings in Singapore and many other places, and also now a lot of things are happening in Southeast Asia and East Asia. So I think it's important for countries like Indonesia who have this unique perspective and who are perhaps underrepresented in the current dialogue to be present on this global stage, to also maybe learn from things that that other that other institutions and countries have already established. So, I mean, now I'm speaking personally because, as I said, we don't give policy recommendations for the report. But the UK AC is doing a lot of work on evaluation. Other countries can build on that, for example, and then bring in their own perspectives and bring in their own needs and twists, because the needs of Indonesia are probably very different from the needs of the UK, because it is just such a different country with a very different labor market, for example, and different ways like people use AI differently. It has different sectors with different user profiles. So I think bringing in that perspective into the global dialogue will help to make the global governance framework much more robust, because it is broader applicable rather than just like to a few nations who are currently holding the microphone when it comes to AI regulation and governance.
Nice. And so at Nateas, is there a specific area that from KORIKA's perspective you've engaged with the kind of more international or even like regional conversations around AI risks and, as Karina mentioned, evaluations, let's say?
I think work done by a previous management team led by Prof. Hamriza has been quite tremendous. I mean, KORIKA was appointed as the leading sector to create AI readiness assessment by UNESCO, and we have established networks around the globe and regional, especially say for example AI Singapore. I think 2 years ago we had a similar FGD with AI Singapore to explore more about how Southeast Asia can navigate AI from policy and governance perspectives. And I think it's very useful for us because Southeast Asia shares a similar culture, but in different states. Say, for example, we Indonesians share similar culture with Singaporeans and Malaysians, but we are quite different in how we navigate our own policies. So these kind of networks are quite important for us, not only as to establish more and more AI policy alliance, but also to become a source of knowledge for our government if they want to know what is happening outside Indonesia, so they can reach out to us and get more and more knowledge and practical governance standards that can be made. Good examples made by Singapore, for example, they made an agreement with US, so AI Verify can use NIST as a testing standard for AI use cases to be applied in Singapore. We may adopt that. We can adopt that. It's just like how can we get more and more robust system to create that kind of alignment from various standards around the globe. So I think that's the thing that we are thinking right now, and we're moving forward to it.
Nice. And is that something that you've seen kind of you're trying to take a regional stance for in terms of like across the whole of Southeast Asia, or is it specifically with Singapore and Malaysia where you feel like you have those kind of alignments already in terms of culture, like you said, and background?
The vision is there. I think we want to have a very good alliance with other Southeast Asia countries. What we have with AI Singapore, and I think the last time we spoke with Mr. Simon Chesterman, is to make this networking go broader, not just between Indonesia and Singapore. And we believe that with that kind of cooperation, we can reach out to other countries as well. Say, for example, we want to learn more about Vietnam. How can they create a unified AI law? What is the stance? What is the background? What is their overarching goals and stuff? So I think those may be a fruitful discussion for us in the near future.
And thinking about some of the kind of shared commonalities and also some of the differences, the International AI Safety Report was first envisioned at the inaugural AI Safety Summit, which was held in Bletchley Park in 2023. And we see the UK, the UK's AI Security Institute has over £1 million in funding, and they also have access to frontier models like Mythos. Karina, you mentioned how far advanced Mythos is in terms of being able to discover vulnerabilities in certain infrastructure. So for a country like Indonesia, which is in a way vulnerable to the same risks like as everybody is globally, but has a very different set of resources at its hands in terms of not just funding, but also those other resources. What could impactful AI safety work look like, and how could the international community support countries in a position like this?
Yeah, so we're actually going to release a blog post very soon as INISIA, which is like the AI Security Institute in France, and AC and the broader network of safety institutes on how can evaluators who have very limited resources, as most have, how can they prioritize how to evaluate AI systems and models. And so I think, yeah, I think this is going to be the key for most countries, not just Indonesia and not just France, but a lot of countries who currently don't have the massive funding that the UK has on AI safety research, is to just prioritize funding to make sure you're really testing what is relevant for your particular context. And that requires, of course, knowing about, how are AI systems used in Indonesia, which systems are used, is it more open weight systems, or is it more frontier models, and then really tailor it to the particular context. I think that's going to be we're all going to have to need to prioritize, and I think that's going to be the crux, just knowing how to prioritize effectively.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned the prioritization there. Pak Menteas, what would you see as like the number one priority from the Indonesian perspective?
I think from my personal perspective, I think one of the key things that we are lacking of, but it is very essential, is the how to establish a very good data protection regulation. We have the law right now, but Indonesia, who adopts European continental law, which means we use written law as our main source of law, requires more implementing regulation to be applied, more technical interpretation under that written rules, in order to ensure that we have a very good guideline to manage and to protect data protection. The reason why I mentioned this, because more and more we are seeing lots of Indonesian users may upload their very sensitive personal data to, say, for example, general AI application, and it might raise another risk of issue of data leakage, or maybe some kind of another issue that may happen in the near future. The other thing is about misinformation and deepfake. Actually, we had one during our presidential election, or in 2024, we had these deepfake issues that cause misinformation that somehow at some point created some upheaval in society. So those two issues are quite important for us to be intervened, because those two are really touching the daily use of our society right now. We're using generative AI for any kind of use in our daily life right now. And I think at some point we haven't had any good understanding about first data protection, and the other one, what is AI can do and what AI cannot do. So that's the thing that I think we have to focus on from now on.
Yeah, I think this kind of reflects a lot of what we've seen kind of globally, which is risks kind of like very visible. And I think the International AI Safety Report is very interesting because you do touch on some of the emerging risks as well. Some of the risks like that we don't have the evidence for yet. So as you mentioned, Pak Mateus, like we have seen, unfortunately, a lot of examples of misinformation, disinformation, and those kind of risks. But for emerging risks that maybe we posit will come soon, but we don't have the evidence for yet, what could Indonesia do to be able to better discover these new risks or also track risks that we expect to come through soon? Karina, maybe I'd go to you first and then Pak Mateus afterwards. Oh, you're muted, Karina.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, so I mean, this really depends on the particular risk you are thinking of because they do require different mitigation mechanisms and different ways to respond. So, for example, I would say one thing that governments certainly can do, and again, I'm speaking here from like a private view because we don't have any policy recommendations in the report, is to implement very strong monitoring and post-deployment monitoring environments, just because currently it is really difficult to address risks and to implement safeguards for risks that haven't really manifested yet, or that we don't know when they will manifest. And especially thinking of open weight models, like there are so many risks that might be emerging in the wake of those models. Having strong ecosystem monitoring system in place that allows you to track which system is being used for what, what and by whom, for example, what is tracking whether content is AI generated or not. So those are things that I think that are really useful just for the government to have more information on how the systems are used, which is then like allows you to more effectively mitigate risks once they have manifested. But overall, I mean, I've only spoken to some of the risks here where we now do have more evidence, such as cyber and harms from deep fakes. But there are lots of risks where we do not have a lot of evidence, such as AI companions or what the use of AI does to the cognitive development of our children when they use AI in an educational context, or whether to what extent AI system will be able to manipulate others and also on a large scale. So those are all risks that we don't have a lot of evidence on, or where the evidence is still very mixed. And here, really, I mean, in the report we have small sections that say evidence gaps. It really makes sense for government stakeholders, academia, people overall to just make sure we try to fill these evidence gaps and in order to be able to track whether these risks are likely to manifest and when.
Okay, Wingy, sorry to interrupt, but I think it's time because there are a lot of questions from the floor. So let's go ahead and pick them. All right? Go ahead.
Thanks,
Right.
Rob.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just to
Silakan
say
Bapak Ibu kalau mau menanyakan bisa bahasa Indonesia mau bahasa Inggris, lanjut ya. Silakan.
Okay, great. So I can see we have one hand up, so I will just unmute Ramat. If you could just introduce yourself quickly and then be as concise as possible with your question, because I think we'll have quite a few coming
Okay,
through.
sure. My name is Rahmat Ibowo from Infaloka. I was ITB graduate. So my question is about the AI safety. So I recently made a project about deploying OpenClaw on the Kali Linux. So the model can have the access to all of the penetration tools on the Kali, and the result was staggering. So it can do end-to-end attack for the pen test using a prompt, but it is up to the models itself. So yeah, so the hackers can just use some kind of prompt engineering to make the models can be loose. And nowadays we are seeing that a lot of vulnerabilities coming in, like a lot of the RCE, remote code execution. So we are now seeing the AI doomsday. So one of the problem is that uh, is it also the open source doomsday? So we are more into making a five coded package than using the open source, since the open source can be attacked by that kind of tools. So that's my question. So there will be cybersecurity doomsday and then open source doomsday. So yeah, thank you.
Yes, so I mean, we're getting a lot of these like quite dire reports currently. So currently overall, it is not clear yet which way the so-called offense-defense balance is going to go. I mean, as you know, AI systems can be used in order to defend and to find and patch harms or vulnerabilities, or they can be used to attack. Now what we are finding though is that very likely small and medium-sized enterprises and or those who do not have access to elaborate AI defenses might be more likely to suffer from advancement in the cyber capabilities of AI systems. And yes, of course, as you said, like with open source, that creates additional vulnerabilities. At the same time, a lot of the research that is happening on AI safety is taking place on open weight systems, because those are the only systems that the researchers have access to. So I think some of the safety research will also be translated to those systems themselves.
Okay, thank you, Karina. Ramat, I'm not sure if you wanted to respond, but you're muted. So okay. Okay. I think we've also had some questions.
Okay. How about the the open source doomsday? So if we are using the open source, it can be some kind of vulnerabilities, but if we are using the five coded code for that package, it will be much safer. How about that one?
So I'm not familiar about the term open source doomsday. So maybe that's a conversation for another. I mean, feel free to drop me an email because I don't know the term itself, open source doomsday.
We'll go on to more questions as I've got a lot of people queued up now. Ed, would you like to ask yours?
Sure. Hi. Hello. Thanks for the presentation and thanks for the panel. I'm from AI Safety Asia. Karina, I know that this is probably going to be outside of the scope of the International AI Safety Report. But I mean, for the past month or two, lots of the practitioners have been talking about mythos. I wonder whether you can share maybe from your personal capacity, not associate as the lead writer of the safety report, how does mythos change anything that you have presented in the deck?
Hey, good to see you again. So it hasn't much presented. I mean, in a way, none of us was really surprised by by what was happening. We knew that AI systems were increasing very rapidly on this cyber capability dimensions. We knew that systems were very, that we had this oversight challenges in the sense of, system being able to, escape their environments and so on. So yeah, I don't think anything changes from what we've written in the report. The only thing what we would probably do is to update our graphs and to maybe like emphasize these recent developments. But yeah, it was all very predictable from what's written in the report.
Nice. I will move on to Mohammed. I'll just ask you to unmute there.
Hi.
Yes, Hatta
Can
is
you
also
can you hear
one
me
of
well?
the IC member. Yes.
Yes, there's a bit of background noise, but it's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still outside right now, but I hope that you guys can still hear me clearly. So first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity. My name is Hatta, and I've actually worked with Pak Mateas before, and it's quite nice to have this forum because I do have an experience with the government agency, especially regarding AI sovereignty as well as assurance. So um, one of their key concerns around AI sovereignty was the procurement of AI models and servers outside from vendors outside of Indonesia. So uh, what I wanted to understand was that from a safety and governance perspective, what frameworks or assurances should government agency look for or perhaps demand when they are procuring AI from external vendors, and so that they can confidently do so without compromising their sovereignty. So yeah, looking forward for insights regarding this. Thank you, guys.
I think this goes outside of the scope of what we're talking about in the report, although of course it's also a lively topic that we currently have in France and in other European countries. So maybe I'll just hand over to Matthias, who has probably more to say on the topic.
Actually, this is the hardest question, Mas Hatta. I think we've talked this before last year about this. But the thing is when we do the procurement, one thing that I always try to teach any participant who comes to my class is to ensure risk first, risk aversion, and most importantly, choose the best quality. And I think those principles are still intact, at least for me. Because one, when we talk about sovereignty, we understand that sometimes it can be mislead. Say, for example, we want to use a pure local, but for some cases of projects, sometimes we have to cooperate with someone who can provide the technology better. And I think the most important is how the government can have a very good knowledge and understanding about what kind of technology that they want, and most importantly, what kind of a guidelines that they want to have. And the third one is what kind of standards that they want any vendors would like to get certified. Say, for example, if you want someone who gets certified for NIST or ISO, then that's fine. You should state it. The upcoming policy that I've heard, I think if any government agency in Indonesia are present right now, can correct me if I'm wrong, is how the government of Indonesia through the procurement body try to address this into more concrete action to create a regulation to state that any kind of technology procured must adhere to the several standards that will be set off. Whether it is under white list or not, I still don't know. We have yet to see. But I think those kind of principles are still something that I would like to recommend instead of having this debate between sovereign and or not. Because yeah, we cannot sacrifice the quality and safety just because of that kind of narrative. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I liked what you mentioned there about kind of having the requirements and setting out with like the requirements and the hard guardrails that you need first, and then coming to the sovereignty versus non-sovereign procurement there. If anybody is on the call from the Indonesian government agencies and wants to pipe up, please drop your name in the chat and I'll be able to unmute you in response to that. But I think we have time for one more question. So I'm going to choose Noor Alam Hasabi. So I'll just ask you to unmute and
Maybe you can let all of them to speak up. We can extend this for another 10 to 15 minutes, please, Wingy, because this is really a rare opportunity.
yeah, I'm not sure if everyone on the call will be able to stay later. I know Karina and Pat Mateus, they might have other kind of requirements afterwards. So I think we might have to have a hard stop, unfortunately. But I agree it is a great conversation. And maybe what we could do, Prof. Imam, is collect any outstanding questions and talk later offline with Karina and Pat Mateus.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Nur Alam. I'm an AI engineer and also working on local AI safety. So my question would be related to Indonesia, who might not have global like frontier capabilities, which is I think a shared threat among global South countries. My question would be like, does it still make sense for Indonesia or like local researchers to invest in like seemingly geographic invariant frontier risks such as biosecurity or scalable oversight that other institute in like frontier countries like UK AZ may have more resources to work on?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, again, this goes way beyond the mandate of the report. I would say perhaps it would make more sense to invest in risks that are like not treated by a lot of other countries. So to look at the risks that are really particularly important for the Indonesian government context. But at the same time, I mean, one of the big issues with these bio risks, or yes, is that the impact might just be so enormous when these risks manifest themselves that they require a lot of attention, and that it's quite justified to invest resources into those risks. But whether this should be the priority of the Indonesian government, I really can't say.
Mateus, is there anything you wanted to mention from Indonesia's side in terms of biorisk and the priority of that within the Indonesian landscape?
I think I cannot speak on behalf of the government, but I think based on my at least professionally with the government, that kind of risks are still way beyond their priorities. They just want to touch base more about the basic risks that are foreseeable for for Indonesians right now. I understand that that is something that we may face. But right now, I think Indonesia, especially the government, want to establish the foundation first and touchline the very foreseeable risks that are quite have severe impact to the Indonesia.
Deepfakes being more relevant to women and children. Have in the report, did you see anything in terms of like specific risks and their likelihood mapped to regions, let's say, or was that outside of the scope as well?
We didn't do that. We didn't do that in the report, mainly because of a lot of the risks are cross-cutting due to the distributed nature of AI and the internet these days. So biorisks likely will concern everybody. Like cybersecurity is going to be like a risk for everyone. So most of these risks are not specific to particular countries. I think the risks where you might be most able to see region-specific differences are labor market risks, because countries have different labor market sectors and therefore different vulnerabilities to automation, for example. But otherwise, I would say most of the risks are really cross-cutting.
Oh, that makes sense because of all the underlying infrastructure and the connectivity of the world now. We actually do have time for one more question, so I will ask Fawad Karimi. If you want to unmute and ask your question, Fawad.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Hello, thank you for insightful presentation. As you might know, recently researchers conducted
I'm sorry, Fawad, your connection is quite unstable. Would you mind dropping your question in the chat and maybe we'll be able to see it there?
Perhaps question from Saiful Ridwan in the chat box. Wing Yi, you can look it up. Saiful Ridwan is a fellow of KORIKA living in
Sure,
Paris. Right.
do you want to read it out, Professor Haman, if there's one that you want to ask? Oh,
Okay, Pak Saiful, when we talk about AI literacy, which groups should be the main target and who should be best conducting literacy activities? To catch that, yeah. Well,
yes. So,
yeah. Sorry, Karina. Yes.
do you want me to answer the question, or otherwise I'm happy to
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. So I think probably I mean, again, this will be a question of prioritization. So I feel for example, what we currently see in terms of AI literacy is that ideally we would like to transmit AI literacy to the young generation students, but at the same time, what we find, and this, I mean, is like research that's being conducted like outside of the safety report context, we see that teachers, for example, very often just do not have like their AI literacy is so much worse than the students that it's like hard to imagine how they are in a position to teach AI literacy to to the younger generation. So I think yeah, I think it will probably require some sort of holistic approach as to how can we best prepare our society on the risks. Probably you might want to give AI literacy to people who are working with AI, so they are informed about the risks, the limitations of AI, like the opportunities and the limitations of AI, and then also transmit it to the younger generation by transmitting it through the rest of the population. But in the end, I think everybody needs to have a minimum of AI literacy, given how society will be more and more infused by AI-generated content, by AI support for work, for education, for all these different sectors. So really, everybody needs to have some sort of minimum of literacy in the future, I'd say.
Thank you, Karina. I think that's all we have time for today, unfortunately, because we are at time. I just wanted to say in closing, thank you so much to all of the participants and especially all of the speakers. So Professor Hamam Riza for giving us an introduction to the ambition of Indonesia's AI journey for the 270 million people that live in Indonesia, from the Deputy Minister Nazar Patria talking about what Indonesia has already done and its commitment to the future. Dr. Karina Pronkel for presenting the International AI report to us and talking through some of the priorities in terms of risks and opportunities. And Pak Mateus as well for joining us at the end, also on the panel discussion, talking about how Indonesia specifically has and will be responding to these. Thank you all so much for your time today. I'm so sorry we couldn't get to all the questions. I know KORIKA have dropped a link in the chat, so feel free to share, fill that out with your feedback and connect with any of us via the usual online places as well. Thank you so much all for your time today, and I will close it off. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you semuanya. Terima kasih untuk teman-teman rekan-rekan yang telah hadir di sini. Ini baru
Thank you again for everyone. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.